Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with CompTIA, introducing their new CecurityX certification, which is just the rebrand from their previous CASP Plus certification. I'm going to introduce our guest, Patrick Lane, in just a moment. But before that, I want to tell everyone about 3 new ebooks and infographics that we have. We've been promoting our cybersecurity salary guide a lot on this channel over the past couple months, and we've had hundreds of viewers download it already. But we also created several other ebooks I think you all will be interested in. We have a cybersecurity certifications and skills roadmap, which is an ebook including a lot of mid-career certifications, including those from CompTIA going all the way up to CecurityX. So I encourage everyone to download that. And then we also have an emerging trend checklist. I know a lot of people are interested in what certifications cover which new emerging trends like cloud security, AI, deepfakes, things like that. So if you're interested in any of those, I encourage you to download them. I will put the links right in the description below. With that, I'm going to throw it over to Patrick Lane and we can get this webinar started.
Thank you, Jeff. Hello, as Jeff mentioned, I'm Patrick Lane. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Product Management at CompTIA, and in that role, I serve as the Product Manager for CASP Plus, which is now becoming CecurityX. And so we're changing the name to CecurityX because the X represents a new series that CompTIA is offering, and that's called the Xpert series. And the reason why we're offering an Xpert series and why we're renaming CASP Plus to CecurityX, it's to really emphasize the fact that CompTIA has Xpert level certifications. We've primarily been known as an early career certification company. And so this is a marketing effort to show the world that we have Xpert level certifications as well. And they're very popular. And so we want to promote our advanced level certs, therefore the name change. There's 2 other certs that are also in the Xpert level series. One has already been released. It's Data X, and that's the Xpert level series of the data pathway. And that certification covers data scientist skills. And then we also have, data architecture. And then we also have CloudNet X, which is going to cover network architecture in a hybrid environment, and that's going to be released in Q1 of 2025. So CecurityX is the second out of the 3 being released. It's important for those of you that have CASP Plus to know that this will not affect your certification status. So if you're a current CASP Plus certification holder, your continuing education program won't change. If you have that active cert, you'll receive a rebranded CecurityX badge from Credly, and you can download a new certificate and transcript in Cert Metrics. Also, any unexpired CASP Plus exam voucher will work for CecurityX, and it's really just the next version of CASP Plus. Even the exam code, it just went from CAS 004 to CAS 005. So the cert will continue to serve the same purpose. It'll validate jobs performed at the between 5 to 10 years. It will be designed around the task performed by a senior security engineer and security architect, and it's a natural progression in our cybersecurity career pathway from CecurityX, which then goes into the intermediate certs, pen test, CYSA plus, then to the advanced cert, CecurityX. So it's really the capstone of the cybersecurity career pathway is what CecurityX is. So let's take a look at the certification itself. What is it? As we all know, CompTIA CecurityX, formerly CASP Plus, it's an Xpert level cert for security architects and senior security engineers charged with leading and improving an enterprise's cybersecurity readiness. We already mentioned the target audiences. We're really looking at people, who've gotten at least 5 years of hands-on security experience, hopefully 10 years of general hands-on IT experience. People that have the knowledge and skills that are taught in the pathway before CecurityX would be things like Network Plus CecurityX, CYSA Plus, Cloud Plus, Pen Test Plus, or equivalent knowledge. So anyone taking CecurityX should have already been working in the field, someone that has some experience, somebody who's possibly graduated, gone out in the field, worked for a while, and is now coming to prove their skills. Um, and we mentioned same purpose and job roles in the previous, same exam code series. Accreditation remains the same. It just transfers to the new name, as this is just a rename. So it's still ISO ANSI 17024 approved, and it's still approved for all of our DoD and nice work roles used in for DoD. We're approved for many work roles, which I'll cover, that are covered in the DoD Directive 8140. Some of the differentiators of CecurityX, why is it different? Why has this certification done well over the years? Because it's one of our most successful certifications. CecurityX, it's the only hands-on performance-based cert for advanced practitioners, not managers, at the advanced skill level of cybersecurity. And so many people have gone up to the advanced level of cybersecurity, and they want to go into management where they'll get something like the CISSP or the CISM certification. And those are very popular certifications, but they have a focus on management versus hands-on skills, engineering skills. So the way that we set forth and separate CecurityX is that we cover the security architecture and the engineering. And so we're really covering the design aspects, which involve a lot of management as far as GRC goes, governance, risk, and compliance, because you have to make sure that your architecture is adhering to the various compliance standards that you're required to adhere to. And so you'll have to not only design a secure network, but you can also implement and you can create the network. So that's the thing, you can both design and you can implement. And so that is a really great skill to be able to have. Also, it's the most up-to-date advanced level cybersecurity cert on the market. Right now, we are covering the most up-to-date skills, including AI, which I'll go over some of those skills we're covering. So we're covering AI, but we're also covering, a lot of the latest security techniques for creating a secure posture. So if you're working at a enterprise or a organization, you could actually go into that organization, assess their cybersecurity stature, and then provide different ways that you could then improve that cybersecurity posture. And that is essentially what you're trying to do, is protect that company so that they'll be resilient against the next cybersecurity attack. And then another differentiator is now as part of the expert level series. And so we have moved and we're trying to get our expert level certs better emphasized. Some of the skills you're going to learn, there are four main areas, four main buckets. We call these domains. And so the CecurityX CAS 005 exam has four domains: security architecture, security operations, governance, risk, and compliance, and security engineering and cryptography. So as I mentioned before, we cover security architecture. And so you're essentially learning best practices for securing hybrid networks. And so we're going to be able to work on premises and in the cloud with CecurityX. We teach techniques for both because about 70% of the IT pros that CompTIA works with, which is a large percentage of the IT workforce, they're working in hybrid environments. And so what we'll find is we'll have on-premises networks with cloud extensions, which means you may have a lot of cloud services working with your on-prem system. But the majority of all of our IT workers are working in that environment. And so that's one of the benefits of CecurityX. It's not just cloud native, it's not just on premises, it's both. And that's the environment that our IT workers are currently working in. And then we have security operations, and that's really covering the day-to-day continuous security monitoring. We're really talking about, risk management, risk mitigation, incident response, continuous security monitoring. And then we have governance, risk, and compliance, and we're really talking here about coming up with an overall cybersecurity resiliency metrics and compliance to regulations. And so there are a lot of different regulations that we're looking at, such as PCI DSS, SOX, GDPR, and all of these regulations. They all have security controls that IT pros, cybersecurity professionals need to implement. And so we're really going to talk about a lot of these, what these regulations are, how they impact uh, how they're going to impact your operations, and how that's going to impact the way that you design your network. And so, lastly, we have security engineering and cryptography. So now I've discussed how to design our network, how to monitor it. We've gone over and made sure that we are, complying with our regulations. And now we have the ability to actually implement any of the changes that we've talked about, any of the designs we've talked about. We could actually configure endpoint security controls. We can configure cloud and hybrid environments. We can configure PKI and cryptographic solutions as well. So these are all the solutions that we're able to do as a CecurityX certified professional. Next, we have the cybersecurity career pathway. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, but what you'll see is if you look at the picture from left to right is 0 to 10 years of cybersecurity skills and IT skills. And Security X is on the far right hand side, and it's advanced, and it represents skills at the 5 to 10 year level. And it's the capstone. So if you take Security X and pass it, you've really proven that you have all of these skills that have been downriver, so to speak, all the prerequisite certifications. My new Security X does not have any required prerequisites, and none of our certs do. So you can actually join the cybersecurity career pathway at any time and any place, because there'll be no restrictions to where you can join due to prerequisites. So that's the thing. CompTIA works with a lot of people that have already been out in the field for a while and might be thinking about changing their cybersecurity career. For instance, there's someone who might have Security X. Perhaps they've been doing some pen testing, and they're not too terribly interested in it, and they want to work more defense. They could pivot and go over to your CISA Plus and become a security analyst. And so that's really the idea. The cybersecurity career pathway, each one of these certs represents job roles. And so as you go through a cybersecurity career, what most people have to remember is the first job you have in a cybersecurity career may not have the word cybersecurity in the job title. And that's because many people, like myself, came up through other areas of IT and then jumped over into IT, into cybersecurity. For example, I came from infrastructure, so I had the skills already from Tech Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, and I had been, working as a network engineer. And so when I went into cybersecurity, what I was able to do is take Security Plus, learn how to secure the network, and then move on into my career, go into security analytics, pen testing, security architecture. And so that's how I did it. And we find many, many people come in cybersecurity through the infrastructure pathway. And so that's very common. And one of the reasons is because cybersecurity, it's a lot of it is involved on securing networks and the systems that run on networks. And basically, if you don't know how the network works, you can't secure it. So we'll often say you can't secure a network unless you know how the network works. That's why infrastructure skills, networking skills are so critical to cybersecurity. And that's why we find Network Plus on the cybersecurity career pathway. We also find A plus on it because A plus is all about supporting devices, hardware and software is what you're really learning about, and troubleshooting devices so they'll work on a network. And then Network Plus, you're learning how to build the network and ensure all the devices on it can communicate. And then Security Plus, you're learning how to secure that network and get information on it confidential, make sure it's accessible, make sure it has integrity. And then you can move on to advanced level certifications, which I shouldn't say advanced, I'll say intermediate level certs. So whereas Network Plus and Security Plus are covering skills at the 1 to 2 year level of someone's career, when we get to Pen Test Plus and CYSA Plus, we're covering skills at the 3 to 4 year level of someone's career. And we call those intermediate level certifications. So Pen Test Plus is a red team offensive cert that covers penetration testing skills. We use those skills to try to find vulnerabilities on our networks by attacking our own networks, finding vulnerabilities, and then mitigating them before the enemy finds them and exploits those. So it's a race against time. Pen testers trying to find the weaknesses before the bad actors do. And CYSA Plus, security analyst, is covering defensive skills or blue team skills. So security analysts, people who want to get that job role, will take CYSA Plus, and they will learn how to defend a network. And we do that by setting up these systems called security information and event management systems, which then can continuously monitor the network. And we call this continuous security monitoring. And we use it for endpoint detection and response as well. And what we want to do is monitor our network, monitor all the log files on our networks, all the devices, and try to find anomalies that indicate bad behavior. So essentially, you're monitoring your network and you're looking for someone to be hacking into your network. Meanwhile, you've got pen testers who are the ones who are hacking into your network. So we'll often find companies using pen testers and security analysts together in something called a purple team. So, and that's just the combination of red team and blue team together create a purple team. And you can actually use the purple team to work together so that one team is finding the weaknesses, the other team is fixing the weaknesses. And so a company can go through, find their vulnerabilities and fix them using this purple team. And it's extremely effective, works very well. And lastly, then we have CecurityX, which is the capstone, which is covering the security architecture and engineering skills, kind of wrap up all the skills we've learned in the cybersecurity career pathway at the advanced level. All right, now we're going to switch gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about the CecurityX market overview. So what problems does CecurityX solve in the market? Well, first of all, there's a skills gap for these jobs. There are thousands and thousands of jobs, over 10,000 jobs available in security architecture out there right now that need to be filled. And so basically, CecurityX, if you take it, you've proven you have skills to be a security architect, a senior security engineer, and therefore, if you pass this exam, you'll show that you have those skills and we can help solve the skills gap in the industry. Standardization, if you get this certification, it will teach you the skills and the vocabulary that comes with it so that we can essentially communicate better with the rest of the world, better with other people who are in the same job as we are. It's especially good for intelligence gathering and intelligence sharing when we're using standard terms and methods. Threat awareness, essentially what we're doing is we're, with the security operations side of this, we are teaching people the most current cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities and the best practices for mitigating those. Career advancement, we find people who get certifications like CecurityX are experiencing career growth. They're achieving pay raises and they're even getting other jobs. Compliance and best practices, as I mentioned, regulatory is becoming a larger part of cybersecurity, and so we've really focused on that part in the new version, and we talk about how to comply and what the best practices are to that from a security architecture perspective and practical skill. Security X is all about the hands-on skills, so we really talk about improving the effectiveness of cybersecurity measures. We really talk about in the labs, hands-on labs that are in real-world virtual machine environments. As you can see, it's a very well-paying job. The average salary is around 150,000 US dollars. Primary jobs, security architects, and then we also have senior security engineers that this job also qualifies for. This information you're looking at is from cyberseek.org, and that is a CompTIA sponsored website that we work with the U.S. government to maintain. As you can see in the US, we've got about 4,300 jobs. You can multiply that by 3 to find international numbers typically. And then if you look at other global indicators, what we have is the US Department of Labor. They classify security architects under computer network architects because it's just a much broader category. And there's about 178,000 current workers in that market. The growth rate, it's about 13% through the next 10 years, which is much faster than average. And we're expecting to need to add about 24,000 jobs over the next decade. And there's about, you can see here, over 4,000 jobs available right now. So let's take a look at what's new. So CecurityX, the exam code is CAS005, and that's simply the next series number from CISSP plus 004. So what's new in 005 besides the rename? Well, we did go through and do a job task analysis and revise the exam with the latest skills. And so the highlight between the old and new is we want to point out it's a similar skill level, continues to focus at the advanced level, 5-year and higher. It has the same number of domains, but fewer objectives. And that's because this job role has become more focused and the cybersecurity industry is maturing. And with every version of CompTIA certs, what we find is the exams are becoming more focused as these job roles are becoming more specialized. So each exam is becoming, it doesn't have the information that it doesn't need. And that is a huge improvement because then we're not, teaching and boiling the ocean. Same job roles, still covering security architect and senior security engineer. And you can see here just number of domains the same, and we have a fewer number of objectives with more focus. And then CAS 005 updates. We had a lot of different organizations that helped, all the way from international to domestic to small to medium businesses to enterprise, as well as multiple sectors, from healthcare to finance to defense. We included subject matter experts from all different walks of cybersecurity life in all different industries, including public critical infrastructure, including gas pipelines and things like that. So we felt very good with the group of SMEs who helped us and the organizations that provided them. All in all, we had over 2,000 touch points to creating this from different SMEs to create the new version. So it's a very good representation of the current skills needed for these job roles globally. Some of the ways that it's different, I just want to show you here, we have the exam overview. So this came directly out of the exam objectives documents between the old and the new. You'll notice just how similar they are. They're nearly identical. So on the left, we have, the new, which talk about, architecting, engineering. We talk about automation, monitoring, security operations. Then we talk about, working on the cloud, on premises and hybrid. Then we talk about cryptographic technologies, and then we go into GRC. So the only difference we had here is we just split out cryptography because we do include a little bit more cryptography in the new version. Even though there's not a domain that includes that name, we did split out and include the cryptography still in the exam because it's very important. It's just not one of the domain names anymore, not part of the name. So you can see here the domains, they're similar. They just moved around. What we did is now, which makes sense, we covered GRC up front. And the reason is the architecture is completely reliant and completely dependent upon whatever compliance you're going to be under. So you have to determine your, right up front, you have to determine, okay, what do I have to comply to? If it's PCI DSS, that's payment card industry data security standard. That is a regulation that many organizations that work with credit cards have to comply to, and it just requires that you have your credit card numbers encrypted. And so that would make a real big impact on how you're going to design your network, because you're going to have to ensure you've got encryption for all of those credit card numbers, for example. And that's why GRC is now up front, because your architecture has to include that right away. So that's an excellent upgrade. Then we get into security architecture second, and then we cover security engineering. So you learn how to design a secure network, evaluate one, and then you learn how to, what it would require from hands-on perspective to create that architecture. And then we're going to be wrapping it up with security operations. So now you have your architecture set up, you've built it out, and now you need to monitor it and keep it secure. And so when you're a security architect, you're looking at security operations from a very high level. You're going to be actually working in how are you going to get your agents into new systems that are brought online. The military, they work with like all these different global zones where they just have massive systems that they want to monitor. How do you add all those different domains into your SIM so that you can look at global stats? I mean, those are the kind of things you're talking about when you're looking at a security architecture at this level. Job role comparison, the same. Security architect, senior security engineer. And here are those work roles I was talking about. So in the US, we have the DoD has something called 8140, and there's similar initiatives in other countries as well. But what it does, the Department of Defense has just identified a host of different work roles, and they want to ensure that certification vendors like CompTIA are mapping to their work roles. And so with SecurityX, the DoD took our objectives and they mapped them to all of their work roles. And you can see here they came up with 11 that map, and they approved 11 of them. So these can all be used within 8140. These might change. I know the military is tweaking their approval AI processes right now. So this could change slightly by their implementation next year, next spring. So just be aware of that. But we're doing very good and enlisted for a great number of work roles. So we're very pleased with its ranking. Next, exam info. The exam code CAS 005. The exam, you can take it to the Pearson VUE Testing Center. You can take it either on the on ground on one of their testing center sites, or you can take it online with a proctor. There's 90 questions. It's multiple choice and performance based. That's one benefit about this exam, is that there are performance based questions on it. So when someone passes the exam, they showed that not only do they have the knowledge, but they have the skills as well to do the job. Length of the exam, it's longer than our standard exams. It's 165 minutes. And I know, those of you that take in Network Plus and Security Plus, those are around 90 minutes. So this is a longer exam when we get to the intermediate advanced level. Recommended experience, we mentioned already, 10 years general IT, 5 years security, and then with the pathway certs as recommended prereqs. And then the passing score, it's pass or fail only. There is no scaled score. And we're going to release it in English and then other languages to be determined.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. That was great. We'll be getting to your questions here in just 1 second. I just wanted to take a few seconds to talk about if you're interested in training for either the CecurityX or any other CompTIA certifications. Infosec is a CompTIA authorized training partner. We have a few different ways you can train depending on how you like to learn. Obviously, we have our live certification boot camps, which we've been doing for over 20 years now. So quite the history there. So everything from A+ all the way up to CecurityX. You can take those live online, like we're doing now, or you can take them in person. And then we also have self-paced certification boot camps. So for those folks who maybe can't get away for those, 5 days of intensive, all day long training, you can go through at your own pace. And we also have our Infosec Skills on-demand course library where you can, watch videos, do cyber ranges, labs, assessments, all that good stuff in there. So encourage anyone, if you're interested, to go ahead and check that out. And also know that our live certification boot camps do come with an exam pass guarantee, which means if you fail the exam on your first attempt, you'll get a second attempt at no cost. But last I looked at our data, I think we're at about 92% overall for all of our boot camps for pass rates for our students. So pretty high. We're pretty proud of that number. But with that, we'll go ahead and jump into some questions. Feel free to send some in. But to start off, Patrick, we have a few questions about the CISSP. Austin is asking about how CecurityX compares to the CISSP, and then Paul is wondering, how this certification we positioned as a value add for CISSP. I guess I could just take a first stab at this, but I know there's also some questions about like CISM and as well. So I think the three kind of most advanced certifications that I'm most familiar with are ISACA has the CISM, ISC2 has the CISSP, and then CompTIA, you guys have the SecurityX. I would say the ISACA one is the most management focused, the CISM, and then CISSP is maybe the most broad, and then the CASP-X, now SecurityX, is really the technical focused one on security engineering and security architecture. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Patrick, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. They just have they have different purposes, and so we want people to be aware of that when they go into it. We'll often have people who want to be a CISO. Will often take CISSP, whereas we'll have people who want to be a security architect will go in and take a Security X or CISP plus. And so that's mainly the thing we're looking at. It's just their exam focus, both for CISSP and CISM is there's more management, cybersecurity management, than Security X. So Security X is just more technical in general. And so that's one of the main things that we like to point out to people. They're all vendor neutral though, and all really good exams, just a different focus.
Yeah, then we have a similar question from John. He's saying that, from his perspective, the CISSP is, more popular and Security X isn't as high regards or, as popular outside of the DoD in particular he's talking about. So he was just wondering how we address that and overcome it. And I would just add, at least on the InfoSec perspective, we were just looking at our data. SecurityX or CAS Plus previously was actually, I don't know if it was our #1 most fastest growing cert last year, but it was definitely near the top if it wasn't #1. So I know from our perspective, we're seeing a lot of growth with SecurityX.
Well, yeah, and I can actually comment that too, because we just had 30% growth in consumer. And so what we're seeing is that essentially SecurityX right now, it's actually still very popular in the DoD, but essentially it's getting popularity outside of the DoD right now. So we're finding the cert, the really audience gravitating from DoD really into enterprise and corporate. And the reason why is they're really focusing on the job roles. They need security architects. They need senior security engineers. So when it comes to those two work roles, they are hiring managers are coming to Security X. And that's why we're seeing the growth outside of the DoD, because the DoD has, 8140, they had 8570 that pointed those work roles directly to CASP plus. But you don't have that kind of work role pointing when you're outside of the DoD. But now with our messaging, we're trying to focus on those work roles, and we did started with 004 version, and that's when we really started seeing the enterprise growth. But certainly, what you're going to see is as far as CISSP goes, there are more people taking that certification right now, as there are, more people that seem to want to go into the, CISO job role and that type of, management work role versus the, versus staying in, engineering. Because, here's an interesting story. The Department of Defense originally wanted Security X or CASP Plus because they wanted a certification for all of their career engineers. Because they had people that didn't want to go into management that had been working 10 years, out in some of their offices. I mean, especially, when you're talking Pensacola and things like that, who are career, cybersecurity pros. They wanted a cert to give them to assess them so that they could prove their skills, that they had what it takes to still be in that work role. And that was one of the, initial, one of the initial thoughts that brought Security X to fruition was for that role. For those that didn't want to go into management, wanted to stay career engineers. And there's a lot of people like that, more than you might think. But we have all met them at some point in our lives, those who wish to stay in engineering.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk more about this new Xpert series branding. It seems like you maybe have some mixed opinions on the branding. I think anytime you rebrand, you get that. I would say initially, I was maybe not the biggest fan initially, but the more I thought about it, I've actually come around because I think it aligns with, you look at Cisco, Microsoft, AWS, a lot of these vendor certifications, they've typically broken out into associate, professional. They got these advanced levels. So I think it does align with what a lot of the other certification vendors are doing, but I don't know if you may want to talk more about the thought process behind that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mentioned it's basically, it's the reason we did it is to emphasize the fact that CompTIA has expert level certifications, because we're known as an entry level or early career level certification company. So the whole idea of adding the X and replacing the plus, it created a new series. So the plus series is our professional level series. And so that's really what's covering the early career and the intermediate level certs. But now we have 3 expert level certs. One is, Security X, which is just CASP Plus rebranded. The other is Data X, which we released earlier this year, which is expert level data scientist skills. And then we are going to offer CloudNet X next quarter, which is going to cover the skills required for for a network architect working in a hybrid environment. So network environment who knows both on-premises and cloud skills, who uses on-premise with cloud extensions. And so if we have a website you can go look at, if you go online, type in CompTIA, Xpert series, we have a website and it'll just go through the basic, but it's largely a rebrand for marketing purposes, essentially, to emphasize that we have these expert level certs.
Awesome. Then we have some questions about the exam. So we have someone asking, I guess from our perspective, how do we know the passing numbers for self-paced and bootcamp training? So from Infosec's perspective, we do that by people. We have a survey afterwards, so people self-report, and then also if people obviously fail the exam, then you take the exam pass guarantee, we get data that way. So it's not 100% accurate, that 92%, because it does rely on individuals completing their survey and letting us know if they passed or failed, but that's the numbers we get from our students when they do fill that out. And then we have another question from David wondering, with just pass fail, how does the test provide feedback on knowledge gaps? So if you fail, do you get any feedback on areas to improve for the next time?
As far as that goes, I believe in the exam printout, whether it's pass fail or whether or not it's whether or not it's pass fail or whether or not it's graded, I believe it does show you, where your weaknesses were when you took the exam in the exam printout. But yeah, it's always pretty much CASP Plus has been just pass fail, and so that's why we go to Security X. It remains pass fail, but they do that because it's an advanced level cert. I know they would like to do that for even more of the certs, but the grade printout would remain the same once you take the exam.
Yeah, and then you talked a little bit about, a lot of people wanting to become like a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that kind of level. Um, Someone's commenting here that they're finding that the CISSP, which I think was the example you gave, like isn't good enough, from their perspective for employers looking to hire a CISO. So just wondering, for people looking for that like advanced level, do you have any recommendation on certifications, skills needed in order to get hired as a CISO?
Oh, for taking a CISO, for becoming a CISO? Oh, well, certainly, if you had the combo of CISSP and CecurityX, that would be, a really strong combo to have. But I know there are other exams that have come out around the CISO work role, and so you could look those up. CompTIA has not focused specifically on the CISO work role. We have focused specifically more on technical skills, and will continue to do that. So we don't expect to, go into cybersecurity management, at least in the next several years.
Great. We have a couple more questions here. So if you have any other ones, anyone on the call, feel free to drop them in before we wrap up. We have someone asking about DoD clearance. I think we talked about if you're in the DoD, these certifications can help you. But he's kind of got the flip side question. I guess if you're trying to get into the DoD sector, but you don't have clearance or the other requirements, I'm not sure if that's up your alley. But do you have any advice for people who are maybe looking for a DoD role and like how they get into that area?
Yeah, as far as security clearance goes, that's an area that I can't assist you with. But I know, USA Jobs is where I usually go and point people who are looking to get into the DoD. But as far as, how to obtain security clearance, that's an area that I can't comment on. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we have a question from Elizabeth. Not necessarily CecurityX specific, but she says as a small SMB who doesn't have a security operations center and they're looking to hire their first IT security specialist. So, kind of an everything position responsible for compliance, monitoring, there's that first position. Any advice on what they should look for in hiring and their qualifications?
Wow. So if you can hire a security architect, that would be ideal. Somebody with CecurityX, just because you're looking for really that senior security engineer, somebody who can kind of do it all. I remember we used to have webmasters back in the 1990s who could do everything. So now you need the security architect, senior security engineer who can do everything, the jack of all trades, so to speak. So if you don't want to put out the money involved for getting a security architect, another area that you could focus on there would be a security analyst. Because if you're looking at somebody who's got infrastructure background and is a security analyst, you might be able to get somebody a little less expensive to get in the door, who would be able to set up, secure and harden the network as well as monitor it. It's just you might have a hard time finding a security architect, for your small business. But if you can, CecurityX, we really are teaching the SMB skills. It is more focused on enterprise, but all those skills can be applied to small business.
Awesome. And then I think the one thing we didn't touch on was the exam timelines and, when this transition will start. So I know for those on the call, I talked about our, different training materials, usually with most of the CompTIA exams, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but there'll be like this 6-month window where people currently training for the 004 version of the exam, generally have like through the summer to complete that. And then at some point in the coming, month or two, we'll probably transition our training over to the new materials. But yeah, any comments you want to make on the timeline there if I got anything wrong?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this transition, from to the CecurityX is going to occur later this month. Right now it's tentatively December 17th, but we might have to push that back a few days. But just go to our website and you'll find out when that occurs. And then we're at 6 months after the transition is when the previous version retires. And so those of you that have taken, the English version, for example, the release comes out this month in December. Therefore, the retirement would occur in June of 2025. And those of you that have translations, they lag 6 months behind that. So if the English version comes out of the new version this month, then it would be June that the new version of the translated language would come out. 6 months after that, the old would retire.
All right, then the last question we have here is from Ruben. He was asking, do you need CecurityX before you get into the DoD? I think the answer to that would be no. Like, we showed those 11 work roles previously for the CecurityX, but I know CompTIA, you have a great blog, or maybe it's a webpage I was looking at earlier, where you actually break down, for Security Plus and all the other certifications, the work roles that they're associated with.
Yeah, and the way it usually works it's like we were working with some people at Fort Huachuca in Tucson, their cybersecurity team there, and they were testing for CecurityX. And they actually needed CecurityX to keep their jobs, and so they're already in having to get the cert. So certainly if you have CecurityX, it's going to align you with those 11 work roles we just showed you, which is going to make it way easier for you to get a job, because their contracts are based on ensuring people with that work role are on their team that's been hired. So it's a really good way. They're very good opportunities for you to get into the DoD, if you can prove that, and if the job, of course, requires security clearance, you'd have to get that too.
Yeah, and as Patrick mentioned, the DoDs are transitioning from the 8570 certification mapping to the 8140, so some of that's still in progress, but there's a lot of great resources out there. If you just Google 8140 certifications, there's a whole website where you can actually search and see, down to the specific job role. But yeah, I think that's it for questions. I don't see any more here. Oh, one more just came through from Daniel. Once you get CecurityX certified, how do you maintain it? Oh, that's a good point. We didn't really touch on how long they last, CPEs, that kind of stuff. So I want to touch on that.
That's right. Yes. So all of our, most of our CompTIA certifications have a CE requirement, which means a continuing education requirement. So you have to renew it in 3 years. And this is part of our ISO ANSI 17024 accreditation. So essentially every 3 years you would have to renew the cert, and you can do that by earning 75 continuing education units over that 3-year period. Or you can just retake the new version of the exam if you'd like. There's multiple ways to renew your certification. And you can actually go to our website and type up, and do a search for continuing education, and you'll see all the instructions you need for maintaining that credential.
Yeah, then one more question from Monique. She said that she just passed CASP Plus a few weeks ago, so congratulations on that.
Wow, way to go.
Wondering if she should change the name to CecurityX on the resume and work profiles, or if she should wait. I guess there's probably no reason to wait, right?
Right, you don't have to wait if you don't want to. Essentially, the day the transition occurs, as I mentioned, you'll be issued a new badge automatically from Credly, and then you can go to our CertMetrics website where you manage your CompTIA cert, and you can download a new certification document and get your records on that date. But that's to be later this month, and you can go to the website to find the latest date.
Great. Well, that's it for the Q&A, so we can wrap up. Don't know if you have any final words of motivation, inspiration, future looking, anything you want to add before we wrap up here, Patrick, or should we just call it a day here?
Oh, well, I could just say there's optimism in security, in cybersecurity right now, and in IT in general. Even despite some of the doom and gloom we've heard from some in the tech market. CompTIA, we're looking at the numbers right now, and we're still having a lot of hiring occurring in IT. And we still have a 78% of all IT pros are optimistic about our careers, and that's really good. That's much higher than other industries right now, because there's just such a tremendous amount of growth and challenges ahead of us. Also, we're finding AI, is being used to really help people and us just be able to do more work. Because you see, we have thousands of job openings. What AI can do is just help us, get a few more tasks done, so that we can maybe, it will allow us to go through and better filter 90,000 security alerts in one day. So one person can actually, get through that many, using something like AI to help them filter. So those are some of the benefits that it has. And so we're finding that, some of the fears that possibly come out of new technologies, are really being embraced by IT, and so far it's a good thing because it's allowing us to just get more done and be more productive. So I just want to give it put a real positive note out there for the IT employment industry.
Yeah,
That's
perfect.
all.
Well, that's a great way to end it. I appreciate everyone for joining us today, and huge thanks to Patrick. Patrick will actually be joining us again after the holidays for the Pen Test Plus update webinar. So if you want to learn more about what's happening when the offensive side of security, join us for that. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, all, and see you next time.